Hi there. My name is Linda Fabiano, and it is New Year's Day 2024. This is my third New Year's without my son Roman, who took his life via suicide October 27th of 2021. He was on life support until the 29th, but I consider his death date the 27th since that's when he was first gone. They were able to revive him. But I've been wanting to do this for a long time. This journey of losing someone to suicide is a very lonely one. It's a very complex grief that leaves a lot of people very desperate. And it's been quite the roller coaster ride of some level of acceptance, all the way to definitely wanting to take my own life because of the deep despair. So I promised myself and I promised Roman in spirit that the new year I would allow myself to be vulnerable, tell a bit of our story, and really encourage myself and others to find acceptance and healing on this very, very tragic road that we now have to take after losing someone to suicide. So, as I said, I lost my son Roman in October of 2021. He was in psychosis. It was the perfect storm. It was loneliness and quarantine for a long period of time due to COVID. It was a head injury from being thrown from a train. It was marijuana use several times every day for an extended period of time. It was trauma he had experienced. Probably some things I was not aware of. And then a huge part was ongoing depression, anxiety, and extreme insomnia. And he was a very strong, very, very strong-willed person, and I did not see this coming, but I should have. So that's part of this channel. I would like to talk about some of the warning signs somewhere down the road, and others can share either the warning signs that they missed, or I know for many, there were no warning signs. So I truly believe there's no stereotype of a person who takes their life. And I also believe many of those people do not want to die. They just want to be out of the pain that they're in. So with it being the new year, I would like this to just be a quick introduction and a commitment to myself and to Roman and to anyone out there who may need some help, that I am going to post regularly on some ways that we can heal, some ways that we can prevent anyone on this journey from feeling like they're alone. There are many of us out in the world who are struggling and taking on that additional pain after we've lost someone to suicide. It's a very, very difficult journey, and it certainly is not a straight path. There are days of maybe a bit of relief, and the next day you can be down in the darkest spot. And that is what I want to prevent myself from going back down to a scary, dark place where I don't want to be on this earth without my son. And I want to provide a safe place for others to share their journey, to share their sadness, to share their hope. That is what I'm hoping to do. So I went to an event last night, and I'm not necessarily religious. I consider myself to be very spiritual. And there was a saying that I believe comes from the Bible of laying down your sword. And there was no explanation of what that meant, but it really resonated with me. And I have had to accept my grief has been very ugly at times. I've been very angry. I've blamed other people. I've expected people to be there for me in a certain way and to honor Roman in a certain way. And I found myself in great anger and deep sorrow when they were not able to provide me with what I needed. And that is something that going into 2024, I would really like to change. And the saying of drop the sword, where it resonated with me, is just allowing what has happened to my son and how it's changed my life and my family's life to be. There's no going back. There's no changing what is. And so for me, I'm ready to let go of that anger. I'm ready to let go of the guilt that I carry as a mother, having lost my son to suicide. And I'm ready to even sometimes let go of the sorrow, the deep, complex sorrow that just overtakes everything in my life. I want to get to a place of acceptance and a place of honoring my son's life and living life for him and through him, and just realizing that there's no changing what has happened. So what do I do with the rest of my life? I have 2 other children. I have a 19-year-old and I have a 12-year-old, and they need me, and they're watching me to see how I handle the loss of my son and how I carry on. And if I've learned anything through Roman, it is to be extremely kind and loving, and to love deep no matter what. Roman was a very strong-willed child, and I grew up believing that tough love was the way to handle when a child does something that may not be appropriate or something that you don't believe is the correct way for a human to act. And I've really grown to despise the concept of tough love. I know it works for some people, but I realize how much it took away from what Roman needed from a mother and from this world. There are a lot of us that approach the world very differently, and my belief is that we need to offer more compassion and grace to all. It's not about one way of living or one way of doing something or expressing yourself. We're all so different that we really should all be giving each other much more grace. And that includes definitely us that are grieving. There's no one set belief system of how we should grieve, how we carry on after losing someone to suicide, or how we carry on after losing a child, adding in the impact if you are someone who's lost a child to suicide. So if we can remember to carry that grace not only for others, but certainly for ourselves. And so, like I said, moving forward, I just would really like to create a channel for whoever finds it and for whoever needs to know that they're not alone. And I'm going to try to be mostly positive and really push myself into healing. I've definitely been in a place of healing for over a year, but I dipped down into those dark areas, and my goal for 2024 is to not allow that, to catch myself before I am down in that dark place. That honestly, it's possible one time I may not come back from that. So a little more about me. Like I said, I have 2 other children, and I am married. Roman's death has taken a great toll on all of us, and I will try to keep their privacy as something sacred, but still share bits and pieces in a more generalized manner, because it does take a toll on a whole family. Losing someone to suicide is everyone struggles in their own way. And for a lot of us, it's really difficult to understand the way other family members are grieving. So that can be an added layer to our own grief and certainly to our own sorrow and to feeling alone despite family members having loss as well. Roman died alone in an apartment after calling me very intoxicated, in psychosis, having a lot of paranoia, and was just in a state of desperation. Did not mention suicide, but was sending me text messages and telling me he needed me there now, and I was living in a different state. So his messages were, I need you here now. I need your snuggles. I need someone. Please have mercy on me. Like I said, he never mentioned suicide, and I was naive to not understand that he was trying to tell me he was going to take his life. I did call for help. Since I was in a different state, I didn't want to call 911 because I knew that would not be his 911. So I had the crisis center in his area that would go to people. I had that number first in my phone, and so I called them, and I was put on hold for a significant amount of time. And during that time, he called me back, and I said, Roman, I'll call you back. I'll call you back. And finally, when the crisis center talked to me, they told me, if you think he's suicidal at all, you need to call the local police station. And they gave me that number. So I did that immediately, truly not knowing that he was suicidal. And this was all in the midst of chaos. And so it did resonate with me that this could be a possibility. And so I did call the police station, and they went there and they found him. They said just a couple minutes too late. They said he had probably hung himself about 4 minutes before they got there, and probably missed saving him as far as his brain by about 2 minutes. They were able to resuscitate him, and he was taken off life support 2 days later. To backtrack a little bit, he had called me the night before he took his life and asked me to please call an Uber for him, that he needed to go to the emergency room and that he needed help. Once again, did not say why. He had had some form of brain injury or head injury. We will never know for certain. So he was going there to get that looked at and was kind of going in and out of reality. And I tried to call the hospital to let them know his circumstance and that he was having a lot of paranoia, and that he was kind of in and out of understanding reality. And they would not talk to me because he was 21. So I called back. I gave it a little bit of time. I called back. And while he was in triage, and I believe they were setting up an MRI machine or something to take a closer look at his head, he left. And he walked back to his apartment. And all I can think is that took everything in him to get to the ER that night, with where he was in his mental capacity and his loneliness. And you have to remember, we're still in the midst of COVID. So he had not really been out in society where society was functioning normally for over a year. And after his death, I eventually went back to his apartment. There was not a note, but there was a tablet. And I'm not sure when he wrote the message, but he said, "Save yourself, die tomorrow." And all I can think is that since he was not helped at the hospital, I'm guessing his paranoia talked him out of staying there. He was very fearful that people were against him and that the pain was so much that he had written that down and planned on taking his life the next day. I think my son falls into that category of being a person who dies by suicide who did not want to die. Obviously, he called me for help. I openly admit and feel extreme grief that I didn't understand what he was trying to tell me. I did not understand that he was on the verge of taking his life. I certainly reached out and tried to help him in a manner that I don't know would have been any different or what I could have done differently had I known he was about to take his life. But I think the one thing I would change is I would have stayed on the phone with him and maybe just written down a note to my husband of what was going on and what needed to be done, because I was the only one who knew in that moment what was taking place. And so I have a lot of guilt. You can imagine how much guilt I have that my son called me and I wasn't able to read through the messages he was giving me to understand that he was fighting his own demons in his mind so much that he called me to help save him from himself. So that's a big part of what I'm working on. And it's a big part of why I have sunk to great levels of darkness on this journey of trying to heal. I have met other people who have been in similar situations that feel like they were their person's lifeline, and maybe they didn't answer a text or answer a phone call, and they feel as though if they would have done that, their loved one would still be alive. And that's definitely how I feel. So I have to live with that, and I have to find ways to just accept that that is what it is. And of course, had I known my son was going to take his life, I would have tried to do more. I certainly would have stayed on the phone with him. Would the outcome have been different? I really don't know. But that's where I'm at, and that's where I'm at on my journey. And life is short, and we are not guaranteed even tomorrow. And so when I find myself going to the dark place of feeling maybe my life is not worthy because I didn't save my kid, or just being in such a desperate place of sorrow, I have to remind myself, one, I have 2 other children that need me and love me. 2, there is so much beauty in this world. Despite so much injustice and despair, there is beauty. And we have to stay focused on that beauty versus all the awful things in the world on top of our great loss. And we really have to surround ourselves with that goodness. And 3, I try to live in ways to honor Roman. I've really upped my adventures, my risk-taking, my pushing myself mentally and physically in honor of him. Helping people who I maybe would not have noticed need help before losing my son. Learning that it's not just unsheltered people or people that have been abused or the vulnerable groups that are obvious that need help. Sometimes it's the very well put together what we may perceive as the person who has a great life or a perfect life, that they also are carrying demons and loss. And we just all really need to be so graceful with ourselves and with one another in honor of our loved ones, because you just never know. You never know who you can affect. You never know truly what a kind word or making eye contact and smiling, you just don't know what that means to a person, and that you may be saving someone. They may be on their last days, their last hours. They may be carrying so much inside. And so I really am trying to always be kind. My son was one of those people. The day he took his life, he went out talking to strangers, looking for compassion and connection in a crowd. It was a time of COVID. It was a time he had moved away from his family and friends, and he was looking just to connect with strangers, and he didn't. And I have a true belief that someone could have saved his life that day with a kind word, a conversation, a word of encouragement, noticing the despair in his eyes. And it's taught me a lot. And then the last thing is just really understanding that when I get carried away thinking, can I live into my old age without my son? How many years can I withstand an aching heart of waking up in the morning and the first thing I remember is that the boy who made me a mama is no longer here? And then I remember, and I make myself brutally aware that I may not have, whether it be a luxury or a curse of living into old age. There just are no guarantees. I could die that day. And so to make it a precious day and to try to stay in the moment instead of feeling the guilt of what happened or feeling the insecurity and the fear of what is to come. So here I am. It's 2024, and I am not a person who likes to be in front of a camera, but I also know there's a need. I'm involved in a couple of groups which are uplifting and spiritual, and they give me hope. And then I've been involved in a lot of things that, the theme tends to be that you will never get over losing someone to suicide. And it's kind of a hell on earth for the rest of your existence. And I am determined to not live that way. I know I will be in those moments moving forward. It's inevitable. Absolutely inevitable to feel darkness and despair. But I really, truly am committed to honoring my son and carrying on and helping others through this journey. And I really hope whoever needs my videos and needs some hope and needs to know that they're not alone finds these videos, and you can share these videos with others who may need them as well. So it is. This is the life we have, and I guess what's the saying? These are the cards we've been dealt. For whatever reason, our lives have become this, and we've lost our beautiful people to suicide. We must carry on. And although their deaths will never be okay, and we wouldn't wish this pain on anyone, may we all truly try to heal and understand that our loved ones would want us to heal. They wouldn't want to be looking down on us. feeling responsible for the damage and despair that they have caused. For many, it was an impulsive decision that I would have to think so many individuals would take back this decision in a heartbeat. They just didn't know what else to do with their pain. They just needed out of their pain and despair. And so I hope we can encourage healing and growth and compassion and a gentleness and a grace that we all deserve and that all people deserve. So if you're here, thank you for listening. And I'm going to try to get back on tomorrow. This may be a bit selfish at first. I just need to hold myself accountable for my own healing and for the commitment that I've made to myself and Roman to attempt to help others that are dealing with the loss due to a suicide. So that's it for now. So thank you.